I would like that receipt. I mean that prescription.
You're breaking God's law, and you pay a high price for it. And we have the best illustration is Arizona and the lottery. Arizona instituted the lottery to make some money, and they were never poorer, never. The year they introduced the lottery, the copper went bad, and the state had $100 million deficit.
It's true.
$100 million deficit, something that never happened in the history of Arizona. So from the time they started the lottery, they have been poor and they had deficits. They had to have freezing of employment and cut down in budgets. And I work for the state and I know what is happening in the state. So, God does it in such a way that now the officials responsible for the lottery say, we have $100 million deficit. Can you imagine how much it would have been without the lottery? So they never understand. They are not supposed to. But it is a fact. It's a fact of life that Arizona is poorer because of the lottery. And since the lottery is started. And the same is true with us. If we are to break God's law and gamble in order to make money, we probably make 10,000 and then lose 100,000 somewhere else. It's the way God works. When you break His law, you have a blindfold put on you.
So all these sweepstakes and contests, they keep sending in mail. Is that the same thing?
Exactly the same thing. Now, if they send and say you already won something, you didn't get it, and they say, oh, they send it in, fine. They don't send it a gift from God.
Yeah, because you have not invested in anything.
Exactly. You didn't go after it, you didn't apply for it, you didn't participate in it, but it came to you.
Ammo, that's real money or something.
Right. However, I don't think you ever win a thing like that. When God wants to send you money, He'll send it to you legitimately
Doesn't happen.
and in a very honest and straightforward way.
You know,
Each one of us, by the way, have a number of dollars assigned to him or to her. There's no way you're going to get any more. There's no way you're going to get any less. You cannot escape from it.
Can I
No
ask,
matter what you do.
can I
Yes,
ask a
go
question? It's a little bit off the subject, but related. My sister-in-law sent my wife last week a big package, you know, our sisters, as a gift. And my wife, in her enthusiasm, she opened and she threw the wrapping just to find out what was inside. It's all right. And as usual, I'm the garbage cleaner and I pick out the old papers and I was going to crush them and put it in the garbage can, or rather in the, whatever it is we have. Then I saw that all the stamps on the cover, you know this one, all the stamps in the cover
I don't cancel.
were not canceled. It's about $5. So there are many possibilities. I personally took it as manna from heaven. Either, one possibility, I cut that thing, and like a fool, go to the post office, ask my son to drive me, which is going to cost us $2 or $3, and say, Mr. Postmaster, you people forgot to do it. Will you please cancel it? Or I give it to someone, and most probably the girl will get it. And anyhow, that's a girlfriend, you have to write to her too, so he'll do this stuff. Or I return it to my sister-in-law and tell her, use it for next year when we give us another. Okay. Or I use it for mailing. Or as Kathleen Ida would say, I put it in my stamp collection. From the Islamic point of view, which do you think? This is something that happened last week. Yeah, somebody made a mistake. What do you think?
Well, you're putting me to the test. I would consider a gift from God and use it. Because the post office, I don't know, they went beyond reasonable limits in their inflation. You know, I mean, if you look at the inflation of the post office and the inflation in the country, it was an average 10% in the last 10 years, but the post office went up like 100%. So from that point of view, I disagree with the post office, and I would consider it a gift from God. I would take the stamps and use it.
But
They came to me. Yes.
last week you mentioned that it looks like that if you go to grocery store and the cashier make a mistake and give you extra money instead of the right money. So I feel that
No, in that case, she is losing the money, because at the end of the day, she has to count the money and account for everything.
Yeah.
And if it's short, she will pay.
She pays for it from her pocket.
You've taken money from a person. That's taking money from a person.
No, it's not the same. That's not the same.
Well, it's not. It's somebody who's really jipping. The post office is jipping us.
But at the same time, I'm not
See, we were 2 years ago, we were sending a package for less than a pound or less for 23 cents. Now it is 63 cents in 2 years.
Three times.
Yeah, so that's 300% in 3 years, which is 100% per year, and that's way out of proportion. So you're justified when God sends you some uncancelled stamps, in my opinion, you're justified in using it. And it's usually very minor amount.
Well, it's in my, it's going to be my stamp album.
That's my opinion. God knows.
But this happened last week. It just
but
happened.
I have you know what
Alhamdulillah.
several times I got the mail from the university. This university mail, and I never stepped on it.
Yeah.
I cut it and I put it and I mailed and then
You use it again.
because otherwise it's gonna be destroyed.
You agree with me? Okay.
It's gonna be wasted, just a paper.
But it's always being destroyed. But it's a problem to think about it. You can both think of it.
But to me, I just look at the inflation of the
Yeah.
post office and the inflation of the country. And I consider it an act of God that we sent the stamps uncancelled. Roll, back to you. Intoxicant from gambling.
Okay, so much for that. The Quran says specifically intoxicant, right, in the verse. Does not say wine, because many Arabs
intoxicant.
say there is only, they only say wine.
That's another word.
A lot of people want to see white horse in there. You know. We shall not drink white horse.
Or black and white.
But the word in the Quran implies all intoxicants, including marijuana, LSD, anything that destroys the mental power. The mental strength. That is not the influence of judgment. Adversity. It's happening. We'll wake you up.
Okay, there is also a statement about the charity in the same verse, and so it tells us how much charity we can give of our own, money or whatever possession we have, and God says the excess, the portion that we do not need for our own
Beyond the
benefit.
necessities of life is the excess.
Right.
In other words, you do not give away from your own necessities of life.
Right. We give away to the things that we do not need from the things that we do not need.
In other words, charity begins at home.
Next verse tells us about the orphans, and God gives the command to raise them up as Muslims. And so we should give the same care for to them, to the orphans as we give to our children. So both our own children and the orphans, we have to raise them up as Muslims, righteous individuals. And these two verses are very clear. And God shows His mercy again. Says here, He's so merciful that He says, I could have made very more harder commandments for you, but He's so merciful. He makes everything easy for us.
Yeah, but just see the other one about the property.
Prophecy.
Yeah. Oh. Okay.
The idea is not to consume their property.
Yeah, right.
And just
God tells us in the other ayats, I cannot remember exact place, but tells us that we have to keep their property until they grow up. They have the mind to their own judgment, so we have to give them back.
you must be very careful not to take one penny out of the orphan's money. If you are entrusted with the money in the orphan, it's very, very bad. Unless the person who is taking care of the orphan is very poor himself and needs takes a wage for himself for administering the money of the orphan and as a service to them. There's one exception in the Quran. Tremendous test. Do you expect to enter paradise without undergoing the same test as those before you? They suffered hardship and adversity and were so shaken up that the messenger, Natural, said them, speak quiet, so we can all hear. They suffered hardship and adversity and were so shaken up that the messenger and those who believed with him said, where is God's victory? Indeed, God's victory is always near. Okay, so the idea here is to worship God alone no matter what happens, under all circumstances. It's a matter of knowledge. You come to the conclusion that God is one, He's the only master, He's the only one that benefits or harms. He's the only one who controls the minds and hearts of the people around you. He makes them love you or hate you or care about you or don't care. And with this knowledge, it doesn't matter what happens. Adversity or happiness, it's a fixed, definite knowledge. And you know that. It doesn't matter what happens. So also, we are here for the test. And God wants to be proud of you and wants to show you off to the angels and say, look at my servant. He or she worships me no matter what happens, without ever seeing me. And this is the whole idea of our existence. And the end of the verse says, indeed God's victory is always near. It must be noted also here that after the test, there is a final test. After the final test, there is nothing but kingship on earth, as God promises. When you come to the conclusion that you worship God alone. And it takes a long time. The road is long and hard. It's a continuous struggle. But there will come a time when you're a perfect worshipper of God alone. Then there is no hardship. And we can see this in Surah 24:55. These are some of the verses that you must remember all the time. Page 243. the great promise. It says God promises those, verse 55, page 243. God promises those among you who believe and work righteousness that He will make them kings on earth, as He did for those before them, and that He will establish for them their religion that He chose for them, and that He will substitute security in place of their fears. All this because they worship Me alone, without idolizing anything besides Me. If anyone disbelieves after this, then these are the wicked. Batural, come and sit next to Daddy. And Saljan, sit next to Mommy. Then we'll have no noise. Now Jamila is free to roam there. See, this promise is true. Now, do you remember Job? Job had lots of hardship, adversity. But once he passed the test, he recovered, his health recovered, he recovered his family and even twice as much. He recovered his wealth and twice as much. So he was under the test for as long as he needed to be tested, to prove himself. And the same is true with us. Also, we must think of adversity as a cleansing and polishing process. When you join the oneness of God alone, you expect some trouble at the beginning, because you're cleansing all the past sins, all the past errors. And this can be cleansed only by paying for them in this world. So all the adversity that you have at the beginning, you come join this mosque, you're going to have 5 or 10 years of adversity. And this is because it's a polishing process. Polishing, you know how polishing goes. They take a piece of rock, and they put it in polishing machine, very noisy, shipping off pieces. But then what comes out is a beautiful gem. And that's what will come out after you go through the polishing process. Polishing is not easy. So what I'm saying is that there is a final test. Also, if you look up Surah 65, verse 3 and 4, the verse is 4 and 5. Page 401. Page 401. Verse 2. Let's put verse 2 at the end of it. It says, whoever observes righteousness towards God, He will create an exit for him, an exit from every problem, and provide for him whence he never expects. When you observe God, you sacrifice a job or a source of income strictly for the sake of God, He will provide for you whence you never expect, and you better believe it. Surah, page 401. The end of verse 2. This is a verse I want you to remember. Whoever observes righteousness towards God, He will create an exit for him and provide for him whence he never expects. Anyone who trusts in God, God will suffice him. God always carries out His decisions. You have come to the conclusion that God is the King, the absolute ruler of the universe, and He will carry out His promises and His decisions. You just have to believe it. You must have absolute confidence in it. Tomorrow there is a mandatory law, insurance law. And we have, quite a few of us have decided that we have insurance with God. That if you are with God, you have the best insurance. And you just have to believe that. that nothing will happen to you when you have insurance with God. This is the difference between the insurance companies and God's insurance. So that in God's insurance, you don't have anything happen to you. Your car, your head. With the insurance companies, you will have the accidents, and the insurance company will pay for you. You have the agony of the insurance, of the accident, and the inconvenience of losing the car for you, for having an operation, and the companies will pay. But you just have to have the confidence that when you have insurance with God, nothing will happen to you. Also, you must know that if God wants to get you, He'll get you, whether you have insurance or not. God says they cannot escape from me. Those who deserve a pinch, or a little accident, or a little sickness, you can't get away from by the insurance company. Yeah.
How about when you go register the car and renew the registration?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you have to, then you have to. We will not buy insurance unless we have to. But it appears that God is already taking care of us, because the law enforcement people, the prosecutors, are all protesting the law, and they are making an official case out of it. They say they will not enforce it. They don't want to enforce it. So I called the Civil Liberties Union myself, and I told them this contradicts our religious beliefs and everything, and they didn't do anything about it. So we will not buy insurance until we have to. Because the Quran says if you have to eat pork or drink wine or do anything, if you have to, without being malicious or deliberate, then you're not committing a sin. But what I'm saying is, when God says, "And provide for you whence you never expect," you must know that. You must have that confidence. If you have the slightest doubt, it will not work. And this insurance business, we're in it. We've been in it for a long time. We had that conviction to the extent I told you about our friend Tariq, when the guy says, "What insurance? Who's your insurance with?" And he said, "I have insurance with God." He got his phone number. He wasn't thinking. I mean, it was the natural question coming afterwards, but then of course he was stunned. Because he had a pencil in his hand and the paper, he was ready to write the phone number. It was a tune-up place where Tariq's car was a little bit, the fender was better, somebody. So God always carries out His decisions. He is the absolute ruler. He runs this country. It's not run Reagan, it runs with the government, or any government. Anywhere. God runs everything. If you go to the end of verse 4, it says, "Whoever observes righteousness towards God, God will make everything easy for him." Everything will go easy for you. You will not suffer any hardship. There's absolutely no humiliation for the servants of God. You go apply for a job and you'll be the boss, because your soul takes over the place. And you'll see them running to serve you. They may not realize it, but you'll see it. Whoever observes righteousness towards God, God will make everything easy for him. This is God's promise as documented here in His final message. So we go back now to page 23. About hardship as a mandatory test. Over and over we see people who are immensely wealthy on the TV, and they're complaining about unhappiness, how unhappy they are.
survey about the floods down in Louisiana.
Yeah.
We all know Louisiana has problems. That's really severe.
Right. All these severe problems, earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, all these are punishments and tests. Because all these things are absolutely controlled by God. There is a statement that will answer your question. It's in Surah, I believe, 64. Let's look up 64. Surah 64 plus or minus 2 surahs, so I'm going to find it for you. Yeah, 11, verse 11. It says, no disaster strikes except in accordance with God's will. This is the law. No disaster strikes except in accordance with God's will. No pain, no disaster, nothing happens except by personal decree from God. Because it is not simple. It's not easy to get a painful headache, for example. It has to be a personal decree from God. That God will sign. And that's when it comes, you come to get a pillow or something. Then you don't crowd it. Does this answer your question, Diana?
Yes. I sort of knew the answer. I had heard also that the floods down there only affected a certain income bracket of people. It only affected the wealthy people in the county or whatever.
Well, God is angry. It's true. Every drop of water is measured. Everything in this world is measured. Every piece of ice that fell on Denver and gave a miserable time was measured. Yeah.
They did say also that it's almost like the Nile, the flooding is going to make that land even more fertile. So maybe the rich will move out because they're not, when there isn't making money, then they'll be all expensive.
Yeah. Everything is planned. The minutest detail is very carefully planned. Alhamdulillah. Nothing is coincidental or haphazard. Nothing. As individuals, as nations, as a world. Just think every drop of water is measured. Exactly where it goes. Where it's going to fall. How many inches from an ant that's crawling on the ground. That's right. Okay, Carl, do you want to take the recipients of charity 215 to 218?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. They ask you about charity. Say, charity shall go to the parents, the relatives, the orphans, the poor, and the alien. Any righteous work you do, God is fully aware thereof. Fighting may be forced upon you, though you dislike it. But you may dislike something which is actually good for you, and you may like something which is actually bad for you. God knows while you do not know. They ask you about the desecration of the sacred months by fighting therein. Say, fighting during the sacred months is sacrilege, but repelling the people from the path of God and disbelieving in Him and in the sacredness of the sacred mosque and evicting the people therefrom are all worse sacrileges in the sight of God. Oppression is worse than murder. They will continue to fight you until they revert you from your religion, if they could. Those who revert from their religion and die as disbelievers have wasted their works in this life, and in the hereafter they have deserved hell, wherein they abide forever. As for those who believe, immigrate, and strive in the cause of God, they have deserved God's mercy. God is forgiver, merciful. So it's two different subjects here. The 215 talks about the charity, and it tells us specifically that the charity first goes to those that are closest to us, to those that we're most responsible for, our parents and our relatives. And then next are those that really need economic help or don't have someone else to rely on, the orphans and the poor, and then the alien. And
So this is a carefully, we are given the details of how charity should be distributed. First goes to the parents if they need it. If they don't need it, then to your relatives. In other words, each takes care of his own. And if each one takes care of his own, there will be no misery in the world. If the relatives are rich, then you find orphans. Children who have no parents, one or two parents are gone. And then any poor people, and then the end. So in this order.
so any righteous work you do, God is fully aware of it. And it seems that charity is more than just economic help. It can be any kind of help, any righteousness of doing what is right in this world toward other people, be it with simply politeness or anything that we try to do to make the world better, treat the other people as we'd like to be treated, or if we're merciful toward the people around us, then God is because we want to express God's mercy. We want we desire God's forgiveness and God's mercy and these qualities, and by showing our appreciation, our desire for them, we express it toward the world around us. Marcus.
Person from another town, transient. People are passing by.
And the next subject is on fighting, which I take to mean basically in a war type of situation, though it may be. Well, when we think of fighting, we think of taking up arms or of violence rather than simply argument or those things. So at another level, it could be simply not giving in to any kind of oppressions, which may be economic or political or social, but
No, I have to take issue with there's only one reason in Quran for fighting. And it has to do with the freedom to worship God alone. That's it. There's absolutely no other reason for fighting. Only if it's going to interfere with your freedom of practicing the worship of God alone. And oppression meaning trying to impose any view, religious view on you, or to prevent you from practicing your religion. Throughout the Quran, the only reason for fighting. Fighting may be imposed upon you, like somebody comes and say, hey, don't pray. You cannot pray. Yes, you Allah cannot pray.
But if your country gets into war with another country and you're required to go and fight, like you're drafted or anything?
You don't fight because of land or because you're drafted. Yeah, the other
If
country
they
is here to
attack
make
your house.
you not believe in God. Like if Russia comes to invade this country for the purpose of turning everybody into an atheist, then that's in the cause of God. The only fighting is in the cause of God, must be in the cause of God. So whatever there are unforeseeable reasons or circumstances. But fighting for land or because of borders or because of countries, it's all a waste of life. Because God did not create these borders. If you had visas and passports.
What if you're forced to defend yourself and somebody else wants to drive you away from your own land? You have to fight also. Or you just,
Well,
run away.
It's self-defense, but it isn't because of God. You think about it.
Yeah. I mean, if what it says about evicting you from your houses, or you evict them from where they evicted you, they're not.
Once they evicted you, yeah.
If they're simply fighting, they're not perceiving religious reasons, they're probably perceiving grabbing land or for political differences.
Did we go through the rules of war yet? Because that will explain it more. Did we go through that?
About aggression.
Yeah, we did.
We spoke of aggression. That wars are only justified. All wars must be defensive. And we discussed that anyway.
Self-defense, yeah.
And defense.
But in those rules of war, they say, do not fight them in the sacred mosque unless they attack you therein. Like we're sitting here worshiping God alone, and somebody comes and says, hey, you can't practice Islam or something. This is where we have to fight that.
You'll be surprised. Anything can happen.
We happen to have a formidable army around this building anyway, as you know. Brother Abdullah is visiting us from Seattle. And he's one rare person who comes because they were leery of the hadith business. So he came to see us just because we believe in the Quran alone. But anyway, what I want to tell you is that people try to deface this sign out there. And twice, but they failed miserably every time. So there are invisible forces around us anyway. We don't need to do anything. This age is an age of mental debate rather than swords and fighting. Anyway, you can't fight because of land or money, and unless you're attacked anyway. Joining is something and fighting is something else. I mean, they join the armed forces, but they don't fight. It's like a job. It's a waste of life. Really. The job is a means of supporting your to earn an honest living.
But if you join anything and you simply earn a living for something, that if it's part of an institution that's involved in something, it's not.
Yeah, but you don't know whether it's going to be
Well, you don't earn your living selling liquor, for example, which is breaking God's law.
Suppose you went to work.
He's asking about joining the armed forces. Or if you join the armed forces and there's no war, it's just like any job.
But suppose your government gets in a war with another country and you're...
That's when you have to make a decision whether this is because of God or not. Because of God? Fine. If it's because of God, you have to do it.
Well, suppose you're working for a big company and they're producing something that, like just... Well, or say napalm or chemical weapons. Maybe you're not directly involved in the manufacturing, but are you protesting?
There's no war, it's perfectly alright, because the Quran says prepare for war. Prepare the maximum power that you have. Be prepared. But war itself is, as aggression is forbidden. That's breaking God's law. So joining the armed forces or making weapons or anything that is not war is perfectly alright. And if it is war, then you have to make a decision if it is in the cause of God or not.
So it's okay to have nuclear arms.
That's right. But if we didn't have nuclear weapons in this country, we can be sure Russia would be here in a week.
What about the
The thing
idea
is
that,
over.
what about the idea that we trusted God to protect us?
Yeah, but God orders you to make a...
But if you really, it's like the Yeshua, the million last time. If you really trusted
No.
God, he sent the weapons,
Yes.
the bombs,
When you
God
trust
would
in
eliminate
God,
them in the sky.
right, when you trust in God, you follow His commandments. And one of His commandments is prepare the maximum power you can muster. This is a verse in the Quran. You want to see it? I think it's in Surah 9. But I want to get you the index. Yeah, I meant to talk to you about this once before because you said trust in God and don't make any weapon.
Preemptive strike, which is attacking first.
Hello, hello.
They call it preemptive strike, though. They
And
don't
verse
say attack.
41. 39, 41.
They can
I'm
use
not
them
so
either
sure.
way. It's a matter of strategy.
Surah 9, verse 41.
Yeah, no, there is a
No, no,
more
no.
straightforward verse.
We shall readily mobilize.
There's a straightforward commandment to prepare the maximum power.
God made his sandstorm come.
Surah 8, verse 60. Surah 8, verse 60. This is a commandment, you shall. It says, this is page 124, verse 60. You shall prepare for them all the force and the equipment you can muster in order to deter the enemies of God and your enemies, as well as others you are not aware of, while God knows them. Anything you expend in the cause of God will be repaid to you without the least injustice. It's a very straightforward commandment that says prepare. You must always have a deterring force. Look. So it is you trust in God, but you follow what He says. You know the instructions.
It said 20 can defeat 200.
That's right.
So there was an early battle in which the Muslims were greatly outnumbered,
Oh yeah.
and there was a sandstorm that were able to
That's another one. But the Battle of Badr, look it up on the Encyclopedia Britannica. And they look at it from the strategic point of view, the logistic point of view, the numbers of each side, and they try to analyze it militarily, and this doesn't make sense. The Muslims defeated the disbelievers.
Also the battle of Yarmouk, when they beat the Byzantines, they were outnumbered. And in the battle of Qadisiyah against the Persians, it was the best army in the world.
Now those were
Full Persians.
those were actual battles where the Muslims were outnumbered 10 to 1. But we're told in the Quran that the angels were fighting at the side of the Muslims.
We have enough weapons now to destroy 200 weapons.
Good.
Do we need to build any more?
Well, they are having perfecting techniques to nullify the rockets, lasers,
And it's satellites.
But back to Carr. Let's listen to Carr.
Okay. Oppression is worse than murder.
It's good of the soul.
Yeah. It's an attempt to manipulate somebody's mind and heart, and to make other people follow one's own material desires. Whoever's the
May I
oppressor.
add something to that, with your permission? It's not just that they're trying to change your mind, but to make you revert to a situation of unbelief.
Yeah.
In other words, the Muslims now have come, they've arrived at the truth, all right? And for you to go from truth back to unbelief, that is what our staff is saying is the murder of the soul. So it's not a matter of just changing your belief, but it's going back to unbelief, which is terrible.
Yeah.
And Quran says many times, once you have the belief, many people will try to let you revert to unbelief. So that is, it's terrible because the punishment for unbelief after belief is greater than just unbelief from beginning to end. I think Quran says that 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. It says it in the next
Yeah, that says,
line.
I'm
It
sorry.
says, those who revert from their religion and
Yeah.
die as disbelievers have wasted their works in this life and in the hereafter. They have deserved hell, and they are there forever. And those who believe immigrate and strive in the cause of God. So it's telling, I think, that if we are oppressed and we can't fight them, it's better to get up and leave and go someplace where we can follow or obey God's commandments. So like, I guess it's telling us to fight if we can, if not to try to get away from that situation. God is forgiver and merciful.
Yeah, excuse me. This is a very interesting verse because people have pointed out many times. I think they interpret this verse out of context. How can oppression or persecution be worse than murder, they say? But actually, if we read the whole thing, I think what it means is this. In the long run, going to hell is worse than murder. And I think oppression,